by the authority vested in me by the Constitution of our state, do grant Samuel D. Burris a posthumous pardon for the convictions of enticing away slaves, and it is now official.
An explosion of applause filling the old State House in Dover, the same place Samuel D. Burris, a free man, was convicted for helping slaves escape to freedom through Delaware on the Underground Railroad in 1847. His sentence included a fine, jail time, and being sold into slavery. He was later purchased by an abolitionist who set him free. For his family, this pardon has been a long time coming. The person who got the ball rolling, Osea Thomas, one of Burris's descendants. In January, she took a trip up to Delaware from her home in Georgia.
I visited an exhibit at the archives, let them know that I was a relative of Samuel Burris, and that connected me with Robin Krawitz and Bob Seeley.
Historians who were already working on a pardon, inspired by the state of Illinois.
An outgoing governor of Illinois was pardoning some Underground Railroad operatives there. And so we kind of started talking amongst ourselves, like, why don't we try for something like that here?
This was a grassroots effort. Once it caught on, everyone wanted the same thing.
Thomas wrote letters to the governor's office in May, pleading their case. And 5 months later, she got the call of approval.
And I just stood there and started crying. So it was overwhelming, to say the least.
Burris's family has always been proud of what he did, and the pardon simply confirms what they've known for decades, and they're hoping he can now be a symbol for others.
No matter what your station in life, and I mean, he was a free person, as were his parents, is that you need to stand up for what's actually right.
It's against the principles of America to conduct discriminatory profiling, and he says it's turning communities against law enforcement. But he's committed to ending this, along with Attorney General Brian Frosh.
There's discriminatory profiling, racial profiling. Communities are not going to work with the police.
That's the message Senator Cardin and Attorney General Frosh wanted to get across in the Senate Visitor Center Tuesday. Cardin has introduced 3 pieces of legislation he thinks could end this terrible trend in U.S. history. The first, End Racial Profiling Act, designed to enforce the constitutional right to equal protection of the law and eliminating racial profiling through changing policies and procedures in law enforcement of all levels. The second, the Law Enforcement Trust and Integrity Act, addressing police accountability. And the third, the Baltimore Act, which aims to address core issues that led to the erosion of trust between communities and law enforcement. Following the death of Freddie Gray, which led to the Baltimore riots, Senator Cardin visited the city where he says his eyes were opened after talking with people in the community.
People grew up being concerned about whether they could be out by themselves and what was going to happen, whether they get home, or whether the police were going to just detain them. So I think Americans would be outraged to know that this still takes place.
Which is why Attorney General Frosh made Maryland the first to have statewide standards for law enforcement following the U.S. Department of Justice's call to action.
We have to defend a lot of law enforcement officers because we represent the state when things go badly. So it's in our interest, it's in their interest to get it right.
He believes these guidelines, which were put in place in August, are leading towards progress.
They can not only eliminate or at least reduce instances of discrimination, but also enhance their results. They do better, solve more crimes, catch more bad guys when they're not focusing on people who are innocent.
And Cardin thinks his proposed legislation can do the same, with high-profile people already on board.
Well, we saw one of the presidential candidates, Secretary Clinton, come out in support of end racial profiling.
Now, in addition to believing that it's wrong, Senator Cardin also says racial profiling wastes resources and doesn't keep communities safe. In Washington, D.C., Jobina Fordson, 47 ABC.
3D printing. You scan an object, upload it to a computer, set your dimensions, and print. Jason Fruckman is helping his art students at Cape Henlopen get accustomed to the new technology.
Because I can get them past the initial, shock of just learning it and absorbing how it works and wrapping their mind around, and they can just get right into the creative part, and they can basically build whatever they want, whatever they need to.
And building whatever they want, for now, consists of 3D portraits of themselves. But the art students aren't the only ones who benefit from the printer.
And we have them all talking to each other, and then we have students actually now that our art students involved in robotics and science and excited about learning that aspect, so they have both sides when they get to college. They're even farther ahead.
Sarah Desmond is a student who took the 3D printing class last year. It sparked an interest in robotics, which she is now taking a class on, something she admits she would have never done had it not been for the hands-on experience with 3D printing.
I feel like it also just gives me like a one-up in case like I ever did need to know it. Like I could use it because not a lot of schools have 3D printers.
Josh, a junior at Henlopen, wants to go to school for mechanical engineering.
Three-dimensional design is very interesting to me. I do SketchUp and other things, so I can make 3D models.
Fruckman says that after these students learn the basics of the technology, the fact of the matter is, if they can imagine it, it can be built.
3D printing is wide open. I mean,
Cape Henlopen High School secured their 3D printer last year. At the same time, NASA was raving about the technology, which astronauts are currently using in space to build the things that they need. An important asset considering all the talk about going to Mars. And because this technology is even more affordable now, it makes endeavors like space travel seem well within the grasp of our young people.
Good evening, Dave. Well, to put in context just how well Worcester County did on the Park assessment, in Algebra 1, the county scored over 25% better than the state average. So what's been working in Worcester? County officials tell me it's in the planning. If you go by the test, Worcester County students are the most college ready in all of Maryland. The test is the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness College and Careers, or PARC assessment. Last year, it replaced Maryland's high school and middle school assessments. It was a change with plenty of pushback from teachers and administrators. But faced with no real choice, Dr. John Quinn says Worcester County teachers embraced the change.
It's dedicated teachers, and our district is noted for having smaller class sizes, so we have teachers that can really help personalize instruction for students.
It appears to be working, at least compared to other counties. The state average for college readiness in Algebra 1 was 31%. In Worcester County, 57% of their students qualify as college ready. Quinn credits dedicated teachers, but also the big picture strategy of Superintendent Dr. Jerry Wilson, focusing on academic success and college career readiness. Quinn says they pushed their students to lay out personal plans for grades 8 through their freshman year in college, because the school system wants to know what they plan to do the year after they leave.
That planning aspect, we think, is an important part, because if students know that you're working to help them fulfill a plan that they have for themselves, they're much more likely to engage and go the extra mile to try to meet some of these rigorous standards.
Quinn says that although it's nice to know that they lead the state in PARC results, that they're not naive that more work needs to be done. He says for Worcester County, the goal is to have 100% of their kids college ready.
In Central and Lower Delaware, the Connections Withdrawal Management Center is a one-of-its-kind facility, fully equipped to help those suffering from addiction get clean. Prior to Monday, the only option for a Delawarean who wanted in-state addiction treatment was to travel to Newcastle County, but not anymore.
Even though it's sort of probably going to be 5 to 7 of the most unpleasant days of their life, the hope is this is where their active addiction is going to end, and the best era of their life and their recovery is going to start.
There are 16 inpatient beds like these, where people can stay for 5 to 7 days depending on their drug of choice. These lounges feature 12 recliners, where patients can be observed for up to 23 hours. This allows medical experts to figure out if a person needs an inpatient detox, or if they can go home and receive another type of treatment.
If you're snorting 1 or 2 bags of heroin every day, you may not need 5 to 7 days. We would assess you at the detox and maybe think you could detox from that on an outpatient basis. But if you were injecting 15 bags a day, we probably would check you in.
And we're told that's where the tough part begins, which is why there's a bathroom for every 2 inpatient rooms.
And obviously, for detox purposes, we have a lot of bathrooms and showers.
Projectile vomiting and diarrhea, sometimes simultaneously, are some of the unfortunate symptoms of withdrawal, but it's beyond physical. Recovery is also a mental process. The facility has a peer support specialist on hand at all times. Every one of them is in recovery.
We have the medical piece of it, but we also have the piece that helps with the supportive system with groups with counseling. We have peer specialists. We have just a great team that's able to work together as a team to provide a holistic approach to the client.